Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lloyd Carter here from Wing Magma. Welcome to the slightly different Wing Magma podcast, where we talk all things Wing Magma and the Wednesday Wang playlist that I'm curating over on Spotify. If you are a fan of this type of thing, come and follow me on Spotify. Come and follow me on YouTube at Wing Magma. I haven't done anything on TikTok for a long time, but I'm on TikTok at Wing Magma. Instagram, I'm definitely on Instagram at Wing Magma. Come over, say hello, get involved, follow me, like me, validate me, all of those wonderful things. So how's it going? It's been a while. It's been over a month, I think, since I've done a podcast. I've moved house. I've got a slightly different setup, so I'm actually in my house now. I used to be in like the garage where I used to live. There is a garage here, and my intention was to make that a like my office recording studio, all of that kind of stuff. But it is not currently fit for purpose. It is currently fit for storing lots of crap that we may not have should have brought with us when we moved house. It's not as soundproofed as the old place, so as a result I've not done a great deal music wise. I've got a guitar set up right here and stuff, and I have been playing, but in terms of writing and recording, not an awful lot to share with the class. It's strange in there. So like where we live, our garden backs onto like a park, and we're quite close to Bradgate Park and stuff like that. So it's absolutely lovely. Right, so chuffed with the move. But yeah, the garage, like you're in there, and I've just got my amp set up with all my pedals and stuff like that. And I went in there on Saturday, and it was raining. Obviously, you could hear all of that. Any wildlife outside, you can hear all of that. Whilst I was setting up during the day, there were kids playing in the park. You couldn't just hear them play, you could hear their conversations. Do you know what I mean? So I'm new to the area. I've told the neighbours that I play in a band, and they were like, "Oh really? New guy plays in a band?" So I don't want to upset anyone too early. That will come in the post. But certainly in terms of the podcast, there's enough going on here. This is like my new work office and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm happy to be getting back into things, like, because it took so long to get moved and to get re-established. All of my spare time is accounted for at the moment, so it's nice to be getting back into things and that. So like I say, not a great deal going on writing wise. However, I do have a bit of a plan for future Wing Magma writing and recording and stuff like that, which I'll probably talk about another time. I'm going to try and keep my talking part of this podcast relatively minimal, purely because I've got the first episode of the conversation with Neil going on. There is a new playlist, and I want to try something different with that. I'll talk about that in a second. So there's plenty of things going on. So Wing Magma shenanigans to one side. The conversation with Neil, which we'll get into shortly. We had a great chat. Like, I haven't seen Neil for easily 10 years. I would have thought. It's been a long time. I couldn't put an exact date on how long it's been since we've seen each other, and it was just great to catch up. We had a drink. We ended up talking for just shy of 6 hours. So I plan to split it into different parts. And the first hour of our conversation, it was really I've not done a great deal of editing to it, because we were asking each other questions. It was just a really free-flowing conversation. Worked really well. So I've just taken the first chunk of it and I'm going to kick that out as the first episode. May as well cut to it right now. Here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of the podcast. We've got Neil, Sean, Humphrey. Is Humphrey? I always thought it was Humphreys.
No,
this
no
is news
S.
to me. Neil, Sean, Humphrey. One Humphrey. So Neil, you've probably heard me talking about either Minnaars or Irie quite in abundance since I've been doing the podcast. I've been a big fan of music that Neil has been a part of for quite some time. So I'm really, really chuffed that he's been able to come out of hiding and talk to me, because nobody's seen him for about, God knows how many years. And we're going to have a drink and have a chat and catch up. So where do we start? If we start at the beginning of our friendship. So I remember it wasn't called Charles Keane when we went there. It just changed to Leicester College. We were on a sound engineering course. Do you know? What's your memory of this? Because I remember some dude coming in with a needle through his nose. Yeah,
man. I don't remember a lot. I don't remember a hell of a lot from that period. What we talking?
You weren't there long. It was 1999.
Yeah, 22 years ago, man. A long time ago. Yeah, I left because I bet it's a long story, but I got thrown out of home, and so I was homeless, and I had to find work. I couldn't just be in college, so I had to leave. But what do I remember? I remember my clearest memory of that time is smoking weed with there was that guy that was really into the Doors. It was that guy. He was in a band called The Film. Oh, and I remember thinking that was a really good band name.
Will Shidlow, something like that.
He was a posh lad from Melton Mowbray. And,
so I ended up going to uni with another guy that was in that band. So Tom Cora.
Right, yeah.
Do you remember, Tom Cora from Her Name Is Calla?
Oh, yeah.
He played the trombone.
Yeah.
He used to play in the film with Will, whatever his name is.
Yeah, he was a bit Jim Morrison-y, weren't he? I remember me, Ian from Tired Irie, and Bob from Tired Irie went to one of the parks in Leicester, between lessons, and was smoking weed. And then we went back and there was an electrical Jamie, wasn't there?
Jamie Smith, yeah.
Yeah, and then we were in his class and we were all just laughing our heads off. And Bob started whiteying, and Bob, I don't know if you remember, Bob had he used to perspirate quite a lot, and he was just sat there white as a sheet, which was making us all laugh, obviously. And he was just white as a sheet, dripping, absolutely dripping in sweat with his long hair. I think they were in braids at the time as well.
Yeah.
And then he just ran out the room just to throw up, and that's my clearest memory of that time. But yeah, I wasn't there for too long. A year maybe. I don't
think you were even there for a year. So
maybe not.
I got to be quite good friends with Ian and Bob, and because this was before they made a band together.
Yeah.
Because you were in bands with Ian. Weren't you in? Was it Minus Nothing?
Yeah. So that's going back. So yeah,
I remember I remember you having these stickers and you're putting them on the vending machines for Minus Nothing or something.
Yeah, we had a band called Wasted Youth. And then cool. that turned into Minus Nothing. Yeah, that was me, Ian from Tired Irie, Simon from Tired Irie, and Dan, the bass player from Minnaars, who later was the bass player in Minnaars. We were really tight, man. We were just really, really close. It was that sort of in-betweeners age, program in-betweeners. It was four of us, really, really tight. But yeah, and then I ended up, I say, I had to get a job, and then I ended up moving back to the Isle of Wight, and then I ended up moving to a place called Fleet, which is just outside of London. And then I met Mark, who was later on in Tired Irie. Like me and Mark started a band down in Fleet, sort of like near Guildford area, which was like a really good scene, like a really, really good scene. There was loads of bands coming out at that time. You had like 100 Reasons with like doing like big things like Ruben, Vex Red. I don't know if you remember Vex Red, but like, yeah, they were all from like that little like area of like Farnborough, Fleet, Guildford, sort of Aldershot, like a little like area. So it was like a really exciting time to be down there. And then
was this Dayglow project?
Yeah, fucking hell, you've done your homework.
I remember. I just remember it. I remember you coming back. Like I remember it was like, oh, Neil's coming back, and because so Ian, Bob, and Simon, and Sam Coates Walker were in Motel Rosa.
Sam Walker, yeah.
I always put like his middle name is Coates. It just Sam
is it?
Coates. Yeah. As soon as I found that out, every time I see him, or like I messaged him the other day, it's just like Sam Coates Walker.
Sam's a really nice lad.
He's one of these guys that like I bump into him periodically throughout my life, and it's as if I haven't missed him. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just, we just carry on.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. But yeah, so I remember they were doing Motel Rosa, and then Motel Rosa split for whatever reason. Motel Rosa split. I think there was a falling out or something with.
That Motel Rosa kind of happened when I was on the Isle of Wight, and then, like I say, when I was in sort of Hampshire, Surrey. Was it still going? What were they called when I moved up? Were they still Motel Rosa?
Like I said, they did. I saw them play a few different shows. They got really heavy, really intense.
What were they? Yeah, what were they called when they were fucking mental? Like
I only ever knew him as Motel Rosa. And
yeah,
then,
probably was.
When Simon had his
fro. Yeah, and then he put him in dreads. Like, because I was obviously still in contact with them when I was down there, down in like Fleet, and I was talking to them a lot. Still like really good friends. And then Dayglow Project travelled up to Leicester to play a gig at the Attic. And I'd kind of heard through conversations, especially with Ian. He was like, "Oh man, Simon's gone mental. He's like, fucking, you want to see what he does now?" He's like, because I was always like really reserved and like a really nice, like middle class lad. And we went up and played this gig, and Simon was fucking mental. Like I remember him like just screaming and like rolling around on the floor in like glass and like just like being really, really mad. Like I say, we went up and played like a gig with them. And it was like seeing that gig and sort of, how to say it? It wasn't jealousy, but it was like, I want a bit of that. Like what we were doing seemed really tame. We were like a sort of post-hardcore, emo-y sort of like, you know what I mean? Like it was like heavy, but nowhere near like what they were. And I was like, fucking hell, man, I need to move back to Leicester to get involved with this, because like these guys are like really sort of like getting on with it. And that night when we supported them at the Attic, it was like the discussions were had where I was like, I'm moving back up to Leicester and we're gonna like start a new band. And it like, so that's what happened. And then I told like Pete, this guy Geordie Pete who was in the band, I told him that I was moving up to Leicester, and he was like, I'm coming. So he came up. I told Mark, I said like, I'm moving up to Leicester, and he was like at that age where he was about to start uni, so he was like, I'll go uni in Leicester. So he moved up. I told my girlfriend at the time, like, I'm moving to Leicester. She moved up. So it was like this fucking traveling circus. Like, so over the space of like 6 months, like everyone that I cared about in that area, like they all moved up with me, which was just crazy, really.
That's really good.
Yeah, it was mad. And then, yeah, so then we started Tired Irie, and that's sort of like how it started, and that's how things sort of like started to move on. We had this house.
I went round to the house because you all lived there, didn't you?
Yeah, that fucking house, man. Like people like Holly, my girlfriend, it's hard to convey like what that house was like. It was like fucking Train Spotting. It was just a dive. It was like this 3-story, like old Victorian house. Like nothing worked. The electric was always going out. Like none of the lights worked. It was just chaotic and like cold. But for some reason, it was just the perfect breeding ground for. Like none of us cared. Like none of us like sort of.
Did you rehearse there?
No. We always went to the Stay Free. Was like always the early days. Like we always went there.
So because Tom Morris had a house not far from where you lived, and it had a basement, and
Right.
and Calla used to like. So it was a similar kind of thing. Like whoever was in Her Name Is Calla lived in this house with Tom.
Yeah.
And they would just, they would live and write music and play in the basement.
I remember Tom having a different name of band. Her Name Is Calla started later. When I first met Tom, I can't remember the name of the band now.
Mercurial.
That was it. Yeah. So I remember, this is going off now on all these different tangents, but I remember the first time I saw Tom Morris like play. Like me and Mark did an acoustic night at Original 4, which we've spoke about before. And we were just playing like Mark's songs really, and I was just sort of like, because Mark used to write like acousticy stuff as well, and I was just sort of like helping him with that. And Tom Morris was playing, and it was just like, again, it's one of them things where you see someone and it's like, fucking hell, like this guy's really good.
Yeah.
Like just obviously like Jeff Buckley, Tom York, sort of. It was just like, but like that voice, like especially in that like upstairs bit at Original 4, it's not a big room. And just like hearing him, like he didn't need a microphone, it was like his voice was like soaring above like it all. And me and Mark were just like, fucking wow, like this guy's gonna be massive. Like this, like he's like the best singer we've ever seen. But things happen, and like,
but I remember it. I remember it well, that period of time, and we're probably about to get onto that, like the characters that were around Leicester at that time. But I know obviously we are skipping around, but I did want to touch upon Motel Rosa a little bit more, because I'm glad like you picked up on how intense they were, because like I remember they were my mates from college, and they had an EP, and I can't remember what it was called now. Movie.
Remember the EP with a picture on the back where they were like stood behind the chain fence? Was that the one?
No, that's the second. That was the There was one before that, and they were doing that.
Did it have a flower on the front? I'm interrupting. Carry on.
No. I'm trying to remember, because the thing is, because I lost the front cover, so I literally had the the CDRs when you lose the plastic from the front, and I just had the back that you had the CD.
Yeah.
So I had the track listing on the back and the CD, because I remember getting them to sign it for me and stuff like that. Because like,
fucking hell, no way.
Because I don't know, they were just, it was, I don't know, what were we, 17? Like they were. I just thought that's what you did. To go, oh yeah, you guys are going to be famous. I'm going to have this signed. And Bob was called Pukey at the time. Like that was his nickname.
That's Ian was called Pukey. That was his nickname from school. Yeah, because apparently this is like before me and him were really friends. But apparently one day he puked on a cat, and everyone then started calling him Pukey. Yeah, I remember telling my mum, like, she was like, "Where you going?" I was like, "I'm just going around to Pukey's house." She was like, "Who?"
he sounds like, wholesome.
Pukey. Yeah, she was like, "You've got a friend called Pukey." That's like, but, fucking hell, I've not thought about that nickname for ages. Man.
Neither have I. I was just thinking, because that's how he signed the back of the CD, which I might still have somewhere. But like I said, it was their first ever recordings that they did. I think there's a cover of Four Non Blondes on there.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, they used to cover that. Yeah. And then like after college, I didn't see those guys again for a while. And then I went to a gig at the Sumo. I can't remember who I was. It was this girl. I went to see this girl at Sumo.
Fucking good band, man.
Yeah,
Jesus, they were a really good band. Yeah.
And Motel Rosa was supporting them.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. Oh, I've forgotten it. I didn't know. Yeah, they played with them.
I'm almost positive, like this is going fucking back, but I'm almost positive they did support them. Downstairs at the Sumo was relatively new, but I watched Motel Rosa, and it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. Like Ian's guitar, like, love Ian, he's not exactly Slash or anything like that, but his guitar was so powerful, and it was just so loud. It was just like,
was it when he was playing that was it that Telecaster? Was it like when he was playing that?
I think so. I think he was playing like a Fender amp or something like that, but it was just so it was just blistering. Like, it was too loud. Like, anyone would say, like, any sound guy worth his salt would have just turned him down, but they were clearly beyond being told to turn your amp down. And within a couple of seconds, like, they started off relatively timid. The guitar came on, and then Simon just fucking exploded, and he was like throwing himself around like the monitors and stuff like that. And I thought he'd snapped his spine. Like, he just kind of flopped over it, and he was just rolling, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? And it was just like,
that's what it was, wasn't it? It was like, what the fuck is this? Like,
it was so intense.
That's the thought I had. It
was so intense, but it wasn't just like, I don't know, there was something else going on. They had songs, and Simon was just an incredible frontman, like, so much presence. And
I wanted to touch on that, man. Like, we'll obviously get to it, but he was the secret ingredient in Tired Irie.
I think you were all the secret ingredient in Tired Irie, and yeah.
Oh, thank you very much.
No, but there was everything was firing in Tired Irie. I think you had the right people at the right time, the right intensity.
The way that it was, though, that I just want to make a point of, that obviously when I saw Motel Rosa, it was the same thing, and it was like, what the fuck is this? Especially, it's like your best mates, and you've spoken to them on the phone. You've not, I might not have seen them for like 7 or 8 months. Like, I used to see them intermittently, like they'd come down to the Isle of Wight and stuff, but and then it was like, when I was like, fucking hell, like, this is crazy, I want to be a part of this. Then they started talking about a band called Wolves of Greece.
All right.
Have you ever heard of them?
Rings a bell.
Yeah, so they were a band that kind of, if I remember rightly, I don't want to, if anyone's a fucking Nottingham music geek, to get upset, but I think they started from a band called Reynolds, who were also like quite big. And then Wolves of Greece, Motel Rosa basically just ripped off Wolves of Greece, like, because it was like, then once I moved up to Leicester, and then they were like playing me, and Wolves of Greece, I sort of, anybody that's listening, go and listen to them. They were like one of John Peel's sort of like favourite bands, but a band from Nottingham, and it's just noise. Like, it'd just be like 1, 2, 3, 4, like, and just drums going mental, and the singer used to just like spin out, and it was like, oh right, fucking hell, it all starting to make sense now. Like,
where Motel Rosa got it from.
Yeah. So I'm not sort of like dissing what Motel Rosa were doing, but it was like they were heavily influenced by a band called Wolves of Greece. And I think if you speak to Ian or any of them, they'll agree, because it was like Wolves of Greece were, I'd actually say that Motel Rosa were better, and they had like more structure to their songs, but it was like, oh, I see what you're trying to do. It was like this fucking band were just insane, like really, really mad. I forget what the guitarist is called. He did all the gig posters for like Rescue Room, and his name's Chris, but I can't remember his surname. He's like a really well-known face in Nottingham. But like, yeah, that band was mad, and that's what Motel Rosa were trying to sort of replicate. But like I say, I will admit that they were actually doing it better than Wolves of Greece were doing it, but Wolves of Greece were doing it first. Yeah.
So like, I probably, the name rings a bell, because I think Ian may have mentioned them to me at some point, but I could not tell you what they sound like or anything like that. But because I remember being on a bus with, like, we were going on some sort of college trip, and Ian gave me Relationship of Command and said,
Oh, did he?
Listen to this.
Yeah, they
like,
got well
literally.
into that because Simon grew his fucking hair out on that. I remember going to
That's what
Ozfest.
the influence was for me. It was At the Drive-In. Those guys introduced me to At the Drive-In, and I was just like, oh wow, they're listening to, because I had no idea about any kind of music that wasn't in the NME. Do you know what I mean? At that point.
Yeah, I remember going to Ozfest. Not the first one. I've been to like every Ozfest that's ever happened in the UK. That's like, man, very proud of that fact. But mostly with Ian as well. I remember the second one, I hadn't seen Simon for ages, and we all met at the Ozfest, and Si just turned up. This is before he'd grown it out and had dreadlocks and stuff, but because he always had a skinhead because he had curly hair, but he'd like grown his hair out to look just like, he looked like the fucking spit of Cedric Bixler, whatever his name is. Like, yeah. And he had like fucking flares on and like this big afro, and I was just like, what the fuck, man? Like,
I thought the guy was
it was very cool though, you know, like, but that's another band like I never really got at the Drive-In. I liked their earlier stuff, but I only heard their earlier stuff after they got big. I can't say that I knew them before, like the Ross Robinson sort of connection. But I listened to their earlier stuff, and I kind of like, I dug that more than, what's the album called again?
Relationship of Command.
Yeah, the big one. That's another band that they were trying to like push it on me. Like that's like
literally
what they were well into. Yeah.
Ian gave me his Discman and his headphones, and I listened to it, and it was pretty fucking instant for me. It was just like, this is so high energy, and it made sense versus what Motel Rosa were starting to do. But the thing is, at that point they were just kind of heavy and loud. It could have been a year later when I saw them play with this girl, and it was just like, fucking hell. So that could have been the Wolves of Greece influence.
Yeah, I think they got into the At the Drive-In stuff first, and then it moved into like the Wolves of Greece sort of like arena. And I can see why people like that album, and like, you know, it just didn't click with me. It was really hyped. I remember living on the Isle of Wight, and it was just like everywhere, and like Ian talking to him and just like obsessed with it, and like, oh man, I'm fucking At the Drive-In, and it was like, yeah, it's all right. And then I remember seeing them like on Jules Holland. I think they played like after Rob. It's like the famous clip where they like played after Robbie Williams or something. And I just remember thinking in my little fucking dickhead young mind, like, it all sounds really out of tune.
Oh god, it did, yeah.
But I just remember thinking like, the guitarist, that Omar guy, man.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, oh come on, man, you're like ruining the song. Because that Jim, the guy that did Sparta, he was like fucking holding it together, and like, you know, it's like, fucking hell, it's like such a big opportunity to go on Jules Holland, like, could really launch your career. And I see the punk thing, like, fuck man, like, punk's out. Like, I consider myself a punk, you know, like, I love punk music, it's how I started, but it was, oh come on man, you're ruining it for everyone. Like, if I was in that band, I'd have had such a go at him after.
You could feel that conversation was in the post, like,
yeah. Because he just used to just
like
deliberately, he just deliberately used to just like make noise, didn't he? Like some fucking John Cage shit. Like,
but like,
I don't know.
For me, because I used to watch that gig, and there's a couple of other gigs that I had, because I think it might have been before YouTube was kind of rife, and like I remember going and downloading videos of At the Drive-In playing. I used to watch them all the fucking time, like, because it was just. I get like everything you're saying is 100% right. I think if that was my band and other guys in the band played like that, I would be fucking fuming. But it was just the first time that passion for playing was of equal measure or more important than notes and, you know, musicianship. And it was just...
They used to tell everyone to fucking stand still, didn't they? Like, no one was allowed to mosh and crowd surf and that. Do you remember? Like, that was a big thing around that time.
I didn't realize it was like a rule or anything. Like, I do.
Yeah, they used to stop gigs and tell people. They might have had good reasons for it. Someone might have got like injured at a previous, you know.
I saw them breaking up like excessive ones, but I didn't know that was that wasn't allowed.
It just didn't fucking It didn't float with me, man.
I was all for it. It was just so it was exciting but when I went to, I missed the boat the first time. By the time I was into them, they'd already split up. I saw them play at Leeds, and it was one of the most disappointing things I've ever experienced in my life. It was just like,
I can't remember if I've seen them play or not.
They played.
I can't remember. I might have done.
I think Omar's mum had died, and they were just carried on doing the tour anyway. There was just no fucking energy, and if you take the energy away from At the Drive-In, you've just got that. I don't know. It wasn't worth it for me. It was just like, this is so disappointing. I was so let down because you got to think like our lot, like Tiernan, Spencer, Martin. We were all banging to that album, and like Spencer was like, that was one of the conversation starters for me and Spencer. Now it's just, so what, you chucking away at the tip, mate? No, that's what we talk about now.
Yeah, fucking hell. That's for people that's a bit of an in joke, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I find Spencer at the tip.
Yeah.
But so Motel Rosa.
I remember the first time I heard your band, by the way.
PRE.
Yeah.
We weren't very good.
Well, do you want to talk about it now?
Yeah.
Have you done? Are you done with Motel Rosa?
Yeah, because Motel Rosa, and then so the next time I heard about Motel Rosa in general, I know they split up. There was some sort of falling out with Sam and stuff like that.
I think I had something to do with that. I think it's a fucking long time ago. And when I say I had something to do with that, I mean because I moved up. Like, because Motel Rosa was still going. That was still a band, you know. And it was just like Neil's moving up with his cohort of fucking Southerners, and Neil wants to start a band. And I remember saying, like, look, let's just do it as like a side project if you want. Knowing full well that it wasn't going to be a side project. Neil don't do side projects, but like I was just like, you know, like let's just like work on some stuff. I've got ideas, you've got ideas, and obviously it worked and went on to be Tired Irie. But because Mark moved up with me, and Mark was a bass player, and a fucking good bass player as well. Like Mark is a very, very good bass player. He like learned his what would you say, chops. He learned, I fucking hate that word, but he learned his chops from like Tool and stuff. So he was playing like really advanced stuff, and he had a 5-string bass. And
he did have a 5-string bass, didn't he?
Yeah. With Tired Irie, he used to just like play it, but take the 5th string off, like towards when we really started going. But anyway, Sam always reminded me of Dee Ramone. He was like the bass player from the Ramones. He was very like such a lovely guy, but like just a punk like bass player. And obviously I'd moved up with Mark, so it was like, well, he's moved up, you know what I mean? And he plays bass, and sorry Sam, but he's fucking really good, and he can sing, and he can songwrite, and you know, like, all this stuff. So like I say, when I say I think I had something to do with it, I don't think there was a falling out as such. It was just like, there was 2 guitarists, there was me and there was Ian. There was a bass player, Mark, you know what I mean? There was a drummer, Bob, and Simon was obviously the singer, like the sole singer, like just with a microphone. So it was like, there was no room for Sam, which is unfortunate, but it was like, sorry, dude, like, it's just, you know. And like I say, I remember trying to sell it as like a side project. But then Sam had another band as well. He was in that band circa 1983. Yeah. So he was doing other stuff as well. Like it wasn't, you know. But anyway, sorry, Sam.
Formally. So you were saying you remember the first time you heard PRE?
Yeah. So going on to that. So I had a job at the Irish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I got a job at the Irish. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, it was like a clothing store, like a historic clothing store in Leicester, which is now closed. So I hear. That's right, isn't it? It's gone now?
It's been closed for a few years now, yeah. It held out for fucking ages. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's closed now.
So I got a job in the coolest bit, I thought, like in the basement.
Downstairs with all the army gear.
Yeah, with all like the like random ass shit. Like it was cool. And a guy worked there called Tom, who is Tom Eve, I think.
Yeah.
And
One of my like best friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and he was like, "Oh man, yeah, I'm from Norwich, and like my mate's from Norwich, and he's got a band." Because I was like, "Oh, I'm in a band," like just talking to like a guy you work with. He's like, "Oh yeah, my mate's in a band," and like blah blah blah. And I think he even mentioned at the drive-in. I think he said like, "Oh, they're really into it at the drive-in. It's like blah blah blah, this that and the other." I was like, "Oh, cool." And then he brought in, I can't remember, like he might have brought in a CD. But I definitely heard it. I can't remember if he played it in the shop or if he just gave me a CD and I took it home. But like, yeah, like that's the first time I was aware of like
so
public relations exercise.
Tom used to play with us. So like Tom,
he was the bass player, wasn't
he? Yeah. So Tom's
before Tin and like
Tom's my friend from like because we used to live in Norfolk. I moved to Leicester when I was a teenager, and then like a bunch.
That's
of
it,
people...
Norfolk, like not Norwich, but yeah.
But same thing.
So fucking flatlands over that way.
But yeah, so like when it got to people coming to uni, like a bunch of people moved to Leicester, and Tom was one of them. Like a bunch of Tom's girlfriend,
a bunch of Toms,
but a bunch of people close to Tom moved to Leicester, and Tom had no real reason to stay in Norfolk anymore, so he came along as well. And that was like me and Tom used to listen to a lot of music. We got into music together, but we never played in a band together. And then all of a sudden we're teenagers in the same city that have the facilities to play music. So me, Martin and Danny were doing public relations exercise as a 3-piece, and the songs were getting more complicated. So we got a bass player in so that Martin could sing. And Tom was that first bass player, and then Tom just wasn't anywhere near as committed to it as we were. And it was just.
I remember him telling me something like at the time. Obviously, my perspective, my opinion has changed over the years, but at that time when I was 21, 22, whatever, I remember him. If I remember rightly, he said something about like, "Oh, my girlfriend and are just not really into," and I just. People like that back then, I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about, man? Like your girlfriend, like your fucking band, man." Like,
yeah, he.
I remember him being like, "Oh, my girlfriend's and I left, and but here's a CD." Like,
yeah, so he was like, he's not with that girl anymore. That it wasn't a great relationship, but he was very worried about his job, and like, because I was like saying
at the Irish.
No, this was before he worked somewhere else before then, but it was just a nothing job. And I remember I used to call in sick just to go to band practice. Like the most important thing.
Oh man, I did.
When you're 20, the most important thing was the band. Like that was number one. If I needed, like, I don't care about my job. Like, I'm doing that so I can do this. And there was a few times it was just like we had a gig in London. And he was just like, "Oh, I'm working." I was just like, "Mate, we're playing London." Like London was this huge fucking thing for us. We've got a gig in Islington. We're gonna go down on Saturday. I'm working till 4, so I won't be able to. It's just like, fuck it.
Tell them you've got diarrhea.
It was just like you do it.
Yeah, it was just. I remember I went for again. I don't want to skip around too much, but I remember like in the band days, I went for. Because I was always just trying to find these like fucking shitty jobs. This is before 2008, like before the recession. But like, so it was like jobs, especially retail jobs, which is like what I was doing, like the Irish and stuff. Like were quite easy. I'd just like call in sick that much. They'd just fucking, look, it's not working out. I'd be like, all right, cool. And I'd just walk into the next fucking building and do the same, you know what I mean, thing and just keep moving on. I remember going for a job interview at WH Smith in Leicester, and I think this was, I can't remember if it was Tired Irie. It must have been Tired Irie days, but it was like, we had loads of gigs, and I had the interview, and it was like really good, and just like, yeah, well, I think we'd like to offer you the job. You don't have to sort of like wait to tell you. It'd be really good. You're perfect for the role, and you've got a lot of experience, and which I did. But mainly calling in sick, but like, didn't tell them that. But then they were like, "Oh, have you got any holiday?" And I was like, yeah, I need off the 11th, 12th, the 17th, the 19th, the 23rd, the 20th. And they were just like, genuinely, the woman like said to me, she just went, this isn't going to work, is it? I went, no. And I was just like, but that's just what it was. But I was like, I wouldn't dare even think about not doing the gigs. That didn't even enter my mind. Like, it wasn't even an option. But yeah. That's the first time I heard PRE through Tom
like
with a girlfriend.
Tom with a girlfriend. So we wouldn't have been very good at that point, I don't think. Like, so Tiernan joined because we were friends with Tiernan, and Tiernan so Tiernan was going out with a girl. Well, he's married Lauren, and they've got a family now.
Yeah, I know Lauren. Well, I've met Lauren. But yeah.
And so Lauren went to school with me and Martin. She was in our year at school. So like I bumped into Tiernan in town one night, and it turned out that I knew his girlfriend. And it was just like, actually, it wasn't like I just knew her from school. She was one of my friends from school. I just hadn't seen her for ages. So got talking to Tiernan and became really friendly with Tiernan. Turned out Tiernan was a bass player, and I don't think he was in a band. I think he was trying to start a band, and just things aligned, and then Tom left. And when Tom left, I called Tiernan and was like, do you want to join? And he joined. And it was when Tiernan joined that we started taking things a bit more seriously, but like we started to do more shows and stuff like that. And it was around that kind of time that you guys came onto the scene. And so the first time I heard Tired Irie, like I remember Pinapster was a big thing back then.
Fucking big thing, man. Like, and shout out to those guys. Like that was a real sort of a useful tool for the Leicester music scene.
Yeah, so this was before Facebook. Pinapster was just a Leicester music scene forum where you know bands would go on, set up an account in their name and chat, share stories, promote gigs and all sorts of stuff. And I remember seeing Tiernan text me, and so it said, do you remember Motel Rosa? They're getting back together, they're a new band. And he told me about this post on Pinapster. And I was really excited because I was always, I really liked Motel Rosa. And Ian worked at Virgin at the time.
Yeah, me, Bob, and Ian worked at Virgin.
Oh, did you all work there? Because I remember the first time I heard the single, it was on a listening post in Virgin, and I thought that was the coolest fucking thing in the world. Like where
they wouldn't put us together. So like, Bob worked in the fucking sorting bit upstairs. Ian worked on the CD floor, and I worked on the DVD floor, and we weren't allowed to like interact.
with good reason.
Yeah, with fucking good reason. I gotta admit, yeah. But Jesus, man, I could tell you some fucking stories about that place, like, and the fucking manager as well, coked out of his head, fucking DJing around our house on New Year's Eve. Anyway, that's fucking, but yeah, we all worked there. I think Ian worked there for the longest. Yeah, I worked downstairs. But yeah, like I say, Ian worked there for ages though. I think he worked there for years. I think he even worked there when it turned into Zavi or something. Yeah. Like when Virgin got bought out, like Ian worked there for a long time.
Last I knew, Ian was working at a record store in Brighton.
Yeah, I don't really keep in contact with him.
So, like, I know that was always his thing, was working in record stores. But it was the fact that back then, and there's only a certain generation that would remember, you used to go into shops like Rockaboom or Virgin, and if there was
fucking Rockaboom, man, that was a fucking decent shop.
And they'd have 5-10 CDs, and you could press play and listen to it before you bought it. You would listen to it in the shop. And I remember listening to Sputnik versus Apollo, and just thinking, oh shit. Like,
Ian put it on at the listening post, did he?
Yeah. I went in, and I just thought that was cool as fuck. Like, just to, like, that kind of PR now back then, just like Do you know what I mean? Just to kind of put it in store next to other CDs and get it played and stuff like that. But I remember everything about it, and just that track. It was just whatever we were doing.
Which one's that? Is that the Broken Teeth one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't even know what the track is.
No, I fucking I don't remember because I fucking named all the songs, but because the song titles have nothing to do with the with the actual song, I get confused. Like it's like when you say, someone said to me like, "Oh man, that song, the Acrobats are amazing," and I was like, "Which fucking song's that?" It's like I remember the choruses, but like I remember the lyrics, but I don't remember the names. Like
because they're throwaway kind of.
They just throw. Yeah, I just thought Sputnik versus Apollo was a cool name for a song. Like, but yeah.
I remember. So I remember coming around like to your house, the house that we were talking about, and we were talking about doing a split single. And our song that we would have put on that split single was Panic. I don't know if you can remember Panic, but it was pure at the drive. It was an at the drive-in riff that we just turned into our own
I'll
song.
be fucking honest, Lloyd. I can't even remember you coming around the house. I can't, but that's a lot of drinking.
I'm trying to think.
I
was going to try and save my dignity there, but I can't remember if it was you that I was talking to.
Was it a house party?
No.
Was it?
It was a business meeting. We were talking about we were talking about doing a split single, and
Fuck knows.
But it never came to anything. But the point I'm not offended or anything, but like the point I was trying to make is just that you guys were just so many leagues ahead of what we were doing.
But when we weren't though, because it's just different music.
You were. No, it was such a better quality of music, and I
don't know, man. I genuinely, on my son's life, disagree. I just think that we weren't at all. It was just different music. We just had some fucking choruses. I think. I don't know.
We would I met up with Tiernan and Martin last week. And because we're getting our band Bronze Age back together, and we were talking about that period of time, but not the Bronze Age period of time, the Tired Irie PRE period of time. And we were just saying, Tired Irie forced us, not willingly or knowingly, forced us to be a better band, because it was just like, these guys are our age, they're from most of that band were from my school. You know, that we've got no excuse. Like, there's no reason why they should be. And it was fucking light years ahead of what we were doing. I don't think it was. But then you've got obviously we'll get to the playlist and a band on there, which I'll talk about more in depth when we get to it. But youth movie soundtrack strategies, like we heard them, and it was like it blew our minds. Yeah,
it's what I mean. It's a bit like the Wolves of Greece thing. It's like you heard Motel Rosa, but it's like everyone's feeding off of each other. But it's like I don't, like I say, I'm thankful and grateful, obviously, that you think like that, but I respectfully disagree. But carry on anyway.
No, it's just it's weird because like. There's no way that you would understand how it's influenced me and what we were doing. There's no possible way you could or would know. But like, it was just such a great time. Like there was no it wasn't competition in any sort of. We weren't jealous or anything like that. It was just like, these guys are just so good, and it was just like everyone around us knew that. Do you know what I mean? And everybody knew that they were the band that we all need to like keep an eye on. And I knew that from a very, very early point. And you guys seem to those three songs. So the EP, it had a name, but I never knew what it was called. And if you don't know the name of your songs, I doubt you know the name of your EPs. Like, I only knew it had a name when I downloaded something, and it might have been I bought them from.
It had the word Renegades in it. something about
the
being
renegades that we
renegade.
used to be. It had a really long title.
Yeah, influenced by youth movies. Like, yeah.
You would have done this before youth movies. So
We were together before youth movies.
You brought youth movies to Leicester, and
that's a whole story. Yeah. That's that whole like element. Fucking hell. But
so like wolf parties and at the Shakespeare's Head and stuff like that. So I remember that gig. I don't know if we can we go? We can cut to that. But like the point I was making before we did that, those 3 songs that were on that EP, like I used to play that EP like all the fucking time. Like I remember I listened to it recently because like I was single, I was living on my own. I was living with Jay Marlowe at the time, like so I just moved out of my family home and I was renting in town for the first time. And I used to listen to that and just get so stoned. And you know, like the save screen on a Mac or it's got like these these colors. And I had many nights that I would listen to that and like listening to songs like, so what was on there? There was Sputnik versus Apollo, Usurper, and the Acrobats.
I know which one. Yeah. I know which all 3 of them are. Yeah.
And it was like,
I think that, it was just, we would literally, there was no gestation period. Like we would write a song and fucking record it. Like it was, there was no, which was the same for Minnaars as well. Yeah. There was no sort of, we'll just sit on it for a bit and just keep the tapes to ourselves. We'll record it, but just sort of keep it to ourselves. Like it was just like, wrote a song, bang out, wrote a song, bang out. It was just like a factory. Like,
but you had songs before you played gigs. Like you were recording those songs and you had a product before your
you
first
tend
show.
to need songs before you play gigs.
No, but you had recordings.
Did we?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like obviously, yeah, you had songs.
Are you sure?
I definitely heard that EP before there was a gig. And I would have gone to the gig, I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a bit
and
of me that disagree.
I may well be wrong.
We never had any money, which is a whole nother fucking story. How obviously, because all the stuff was recorded at Seamus Wong.
Yeah.
And that's a whole fucking messy situation and probably a podcast all of its own. But we didn't practice. We didn't go to Seamus Wong for quite a while. I remember Simon worked at Orange Tree. He was the chef there. And he came back to the house and he was like, there's this guy called, because Paul Warrener, he like drank in the Orange Tree every day. He's obviously just over the, not even a road.
What was his name? Paul?
Warrener.
I always thought he was named Paul Wong.
Yeah.
I thought it was Paul Wong.
Man of mystery. But he came back and I remember him saying like, there's this guy called Paul Wong and he's got a studio and it's over the road from Orange Tree and I remember being like, fucking talk to him, like start talking to him, just like see how much it is and blah blah blah. And Sai was all like, and it was like, just fucking talk to him, like, and it was like, so then it sort of went on for a few weeks. But before that, we were practicing at the Stay Free, like we had a set, so we must have done gigs. Like, I might be wrong, I don't know. So I don't think we did gigs with an EP already recorded. Like I say, but I don't know.
I'd happily be wrong on it.
You want to fight about it?
I'll happily be wrong. But like the first thing I heard was that EP in Virgin.
I'll be honest, I can't even remember what our first gig was. I can with Minnaars. I remember with the Dayglow project.
I remember the first Minnaars gig.
Yeah, I remember
upstairs
with Cats and Cats and Cats. Yeah. But I can't remember the first Tired Irie gig at all. I can't even remember what it was. So I might be wrong, man. I
don't remember my first show. I remember we played the first gig at Firebug. We were the first bands to play at Firebug. But
after it changed from Lamplighters.
It changed from Lamplighters to Firefly. And we were
That's it. Yeah.
we were the first band
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
put on. Well, like, so I think we went on first and then you went on second. But that was it was public relations exercise and Tired Irie. We were the first, and I always remember that being a thing. But no, I couldn't tell you when the first time I saw you guys.
I think if I had to take a real stab at it, I'd say it was probably at the Attic, because like we had a lot to do with the Attic. What was the guy called that ran the Attic? Was he called Paul as well?
Ian, Magic Teapot.
No, it wasn't Ian. That guy was always fucking weird, man. No, for want of a better term. No, I can't remember the guy's name. He like owned, and I don't know if he owned or rented or whatever it was, but he was the Attic. He was such a nice guy. Like when I heard that the Attic was closing down, I felt so sorry for him, because it was like that venue had history, like real history. Like I say, it's the first time I'd seen Motel Rosa. It's the first time, you know what I mean? So many gigs, and I started working there, and like I put on some gigs there and stuff. I remember seeing Maybe She Will there, like proper early days. I remember you were like touching on like Fight Fire with Water with Jim and that. I remember seeing them there. Some really, really good gigs like happened there. It was an absolute fucking shit venue. It was tiny and
it was shit and tiny, but like you got 20 people in there and you were playing a fucking
But that's great when you're a shit band, isn't it? Because it's like we sold out, man.
Yeah. Did you see Enter Shikari playing there?
No, I didn't even know they played there.
They played there. Like I didn't go. I never really liked Enter Shikari, but everybody knew who they were. They were like the MySpace band. But yeah, they played there. They got people to do a Human Pyramid and all this kind of stuff. And
I saw some fucking good gigs there, man. I swear, like people got like hepatitis and stuff just off the floor, but it was worse so than, you know, like old school Charlotte days. Like the Attic was filthy, but had that, you know,
there was a circuit, like, and to think like, so there was like the Shed, the Attic, the Charlotte, Sumo, Firebug, 04. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, the Shed was the first ever gig that I ever played, that Ian ever played, that Simon ever played, and that Dan from Minnaars, the bass player from Minnaars, played as well. Our band, Wasted Youth.
That's so cool.
Fucking rock on, man. And we just did like covers. I think we had like we had like a 7 sort of like song set list, and like 4 were covers, and we had like 3 of our own. But like I remember I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I remember for like my first ever gig, so I had like eyeliner on, and then I asked my mum for some of her tights, and then like I cut a hole in the crotch and then like put them like through my arms, and like, you know, like Marilyn Manson-y fucking yeah, man, like proper, like, and Ian was the same, because Ian had really long hair at the time, and he had like nail varnish on, and it was all like fucking like pretending to be scary. And
Neil told me about a band where you guys just Ian told me about a band that you guys were in, that you used to spit on each other at band practice.
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, man. That was like the fucking what? You didn't? You never used to do that? Fucking weirdos. And that's how. That's what you do, yeah. That's like fucking. That's just part of it. Like I don't. Yeah, we used to do weird shit, man. That's not even the weirdest shit. Like fucking hell.
But you said that you used to like come out of band practice and it just used to stink because you were just spitting on each other.
Yeah. You know that like fucking dried spit smell, man. It's like fruity ass, like real fruity ass. Like.
So there we are. That was pretty cool. Like I say, looking forward to releasing the next episode of that conversation. That's probably going to take slightly more editing. So like that conversation was kind of the incarnation of Tired Irie and stuff like that. The next episode we talk about what happened at the end of Tired Irie, how Minnaars came to be a thing, So really looking forward to getting into that. And the third part we've not recorded yet because Neil curated a really decent playlist and it would be great to get into that. So I'd like to have a conversation with him about that too. So like I was saying earlier, Wing Magma is, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's on the back burner. It's just it's difficult to kind of get into right now. But there has been progression in some of my other musical outputs. So Bronze Age is very much getting back together. I'm so excited about that. Bronze Age, out of all of the bands I've ever been in, Bronze Age was always my favourite. I felt although we only had a handful of songs, I felt they were our best. I say our best, like most bands I've been in has involved Martin, and we've written a lot together over the years. I think they were our best songs by a long way. So really looking forward to getting that back on the get-go. Danny is not with us this time round, so I put an advert out. I was just trying to find another drummer. I did ask Danny if he was interested, and it's just not something that he's passionate about anymore. He's got his family and he's got his work and he's really cool with that. So no hard feelings or anything. He's just not, it's not his bag anymore. So I put an advert out on like a Leicester musician page on Facebook, and within literally a couple of minutes, this guy got in touch, and I thought, I'm either going to get a wash with potential new drummers, but he was the only one. He was the only one that got involved, or the only one that reached out. And like I say, it happened very, very quickly, and it turns out that Tiernan knows this guy, and he'd been in touch with. I think he'd heard Bronze Age because Tiernan and the Bronze Age account has been posting a lot on Facebook at the moment. So he'd listened to the tracks and he liked the tracks, and he must have just by chance caught my message and was like, yeah, I'd love to get involved. And his name is Dave Thompson. So like I say, he knows Tiernan. He's a friend. Tiernan is friends with Amber, who is Dave's partner. And he's turned out to be like a really decent guy. We all went out for drinks in Newtown, Linford a couple of weeks ago now, just to kind of break the ice a little bit, and it was just really easy. Like, I don't know, it's different now. Like, we're not in our early 20s trying to make it and get on top of the pops or whatever the goal was back then. We're all family men, like we're all fathers. We've all got other things going on in our lives. We all want to be involved in music again, so that's a very different spin on things. And it's nice to be excited about writing music again and playing music. So like, our plan is to get the Bronze Age tracks that we had up and running again, get used to, like, learn those songs again, get used to each other, and then start writing. We're all this isn't just about playing those old songs, it's about moving Bronze Age forward again. So we've got our first rehearsal booked in a couple of weeks. We're booked in at Pirate Studios in Leicester, because as of next week we should all be able to be in a room together legally, and restrictions are being lifted and all that. So it's a really exciting time, and I'm just incredibly enthused. Like, I've been playing my guitar. I've been trying to, because I used to play and sing. Like, I wasn't a lead vocalist in Bronze Age. I was a backing vocalist, but still, like, there was some complex guitar parts that I had to figure out how to sing. So I've just been trying to kind of do that a lot, is just just figure out playing and singing those tracks. Yeah, just really looking forward to it, and I'm probably going to be talking about that a lot over the coming weeks. So on to the playlist. So, I want to try something different with the playlist, and I doubt that I'm going to have enough time to do it this time round. Maybe. But what I'm going to try and do, so anybody that's been listening to the podcast knows that I'm a big Tiger Cub fan, and Jamie, the frontman from Tiger Cub, does this show called Safe Mode Radio. If you guys don't know about Safe Mode Radio on Spotify, please give it a go because it's just so much fun. But basically it's more like a radio show than a podcast. So he does bits like this, like I'm doing right now, but then it's interspersed with tracks, so you can listen to the whole show at once, and then he will just kind of chuck in tracks like a radio show. Now I think that would be a really good format for me to jump into when I start doing the playlist, because I can talk about the tracks, I can play the tracks, and you know, it just sounds like a lot of fun to me. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to use this podcast as a bit of a test, just to see how that goes. So it may sound a bit weird if you're listening to it without those tracks coming in, or if you're watching on YouTube and I don't cut to those tracks. I'm gonna go back and re-edit this using the Anchor app. Just see how it goes. Like, I've never done it before. Could be really easy, could be live in time to go out. I doubt it though. So here we go. We're going to switch over and start talking about the latest Wednesday Wang. So here we are, as standard. Track number 1, Memory Holes by Wing Magma. I am going to put it on the radio show if it works that way. For anyone that's not heard this track, this is the one Wing Magma track that I have ready and released. Put a lot of effort into it last year, and emotionally and kind of self-development wise, this was such a big deal for me just to have a track and kick it out. Have a listen, let me know what you think. Okay, cool. Shameless well, not completely out of the way, because I've got some shameless self-promotion to do further on, but there we go. So next track, I have no idea what it's called, but it's by a band called Toe, and it's from an album called For Long Tomorrow. They are a Japanese math rock band. So when I was doing lots of flat pack and stuff like that in the new house, James Collins, from a previous episode, drummer from Maybe She Will, and Shyness and Sir and all sorts of things. He sent me a link to a Facebook group called UK Math Rock, something like that. Really interesting Facebook group, and from that, people talk about bands, shows that are going on, or videos on Facebook at the moment. But there was this guy that was curating a math rock playlist, specifically Japanese math rock. Whole world of new stuff that and he was talking about this band Toe as if they're like legends of the genre, and I'm sure they are. Brand new to me, so I bet there's people out there that are laughing at me right now. I've never heard of Toe. Listen to the album, and for albums like instrumental stuff that's predominantly instrumental, it's not completely instrumental. This track is not instrumental, but sometimes when you just need to get focused, instrumental music of this caliber is really, really decent. Now this track in particular stood out for me. There's singing in it, it's Japanese. Again, I have no idea what they're talking about, but really feel the sentiment of the track. And as I was listening to it, if anyone's seen the film Her with Joaquin Phoenix, it reminds me of the music that the operating systems make when they become aware Right, so when they've learned that much about not about being human, they become that advanced that they can just do anything. That is what this music sounds like to me. It sounds like the computers are taking over. Have a listen. Let me know what you think. I don't think I'm going crazy. Cool, so next track on the playlist, Shooting Bridge, Bronze Age by Bronze Age. Like I say, I've been listening, learning, relearning these tracks, and I know some people are weird about talking about their own music, and they think it's like, you know, some people are weird about just self-congratulating themselves. I don't know what to say. I really enjoy these songs. Whether that makes me an asshole or not, I don't know. I think they're great songs. I really enjoy listening to them. At the moment, I'm quite separate from them. I think they're good songs. The recording is debatable. Technically, it's not well recorded, but the vibe is there. Like, there is a vibe captured here. And the recordings that we did were literally as lo-fi as you can get. We had 2 microphones stuck at the band. We had the band lined up in a row. We had the drums in the middle, bass on one side, guitars either side of the drums. And we stuck 2 microphones at it, and we recorded ourselves live in our rehearsal room at the time, which was a factory that had this incredible reverb. And then we sang over the top of it. It was really simple. And for me, it's got that... Anyone that's a fan of youth movie soundtrack strategies, the first thing that they put out, the 4-track EP, it's got that kind of vibe to it. It's lo-fi, but captures something. That's what I think and feel when I listen to these tracks. Just can't tell you how excited I am about being able to play them again and seeing what kind of forms they take on now. Have a listen. Let me know your thoughts. Okay, so on the back of... listening to lots of Bronze Age, one thing I forgot to tell you guys about Dave Thompson, and perhaps you guys, some of you already know, but Dave Thompson used to play bass in Raging Speedhorn. Like, this guy has seen and done things, you know. I think he joined a few... I don't know much about Raging Speedhorn other than they're one of those bands that... You know, they were like a real band, you know, like they've done big things. He came, I don't know when he came in their history. I think the album that this track was taken from, so Before the Sea Was Built, this is the first track on that album. He plays on this. I'm not sure how long he was in the band for. I only met the guy once. But post that meeting in the pub, or us hanging out, meeting sounds a bit formal, he was telling us that the band kind of took a different direction, and this album wasn't particularly popular because it wasn't what the fans were used to. So I listened to it and it sounds great to me. Like, I don't really know the band that particularly well, other than just their reputation, I guess. But really enjoyed this track. If you're not in the mood for something heavy, deal with it. Alright, so this is an intentional 180. So now, Silly Love Songs, Wings. So this track, like, I was watching something on YouTube, can't remember, fell asleep, woke up, and this track came on, and it's like, Paul McCartney is a divisive figure. I get that. Most people enjoy the Beatles. Most people like John Lennon. I was always a Paul McCartney fan, and I'm alright with that. This is pure Paul McCartney. It's cheesy as hell. The bass playing is fucking brilliant. This song gets in because, like, it was a live, like, so the video that I watched on YouTube, he was playing bass, and I was just like, man, that guy plays bass. Like, say what you want, he is a great bass player. Like, you can't take that away from Paul McCartney. And this was just like, just a solid, catchy bass line. And I listened to it a few times. I listened to a bunch of Wings stuff after that. The band, the Beatles, could have been. I don't expect you guys to listen to... Well, yeah, I do expect you guys to listen. This is why I put it in the playlist. So, like, enjoy. It's a great track. All right, so after that, after the sense of cheese that we've just chowed down on, Turbo Wolf. Big riffs. Don't know much about them. If you listen to Safe Mode, there's a guy that calls into Safe Mode radio and gives Jamie a little bit of stick, and he asked for Turbo Wolf like randomly, and like I've not heard Turbo Wolf, so I checked them out, and I listened to this album whilst I was running. I'm doing a lot of running at the moment. I really enjoyed it. It's got the guitar tone reminds me of a coherent lightning bolt. You know, so if lightning bolt is kind of all over the shop and crazy, this is a little bit more organized. In a good way. I'm making it sound boring, but like it's not boring. It's just a little bit more contained. Lightning bolt is a untamable beast. They've managed to capture that guitar sound at least and tame it. The vocals, because I've never seen any pictures of these guys, it could be quite hair metal-y kind of vocals, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's tuneful. The riffs are huge. Cheap Magic was a great standout track of the album. There are a few real bangers on the album. The Free Life, I thoroughly recommend it. Let me know your thoughts. Alright, Van Halen. Alright, so bit of a weird one, bit of a curveball. Again, this kind of comes from Safe Mode. An episode of Safe Mode, Jamie was talking about just 1984 by Van Halen being... He'd written it off as hair metal, but listened to it, and you know and he said that album stands up. I don't really know Van Halen. Van Halen have never really been my bag. I was never into that genre particularly. I mean, unless you class Guns N' Roses in that, like big Guns N' Roses fan. But I know the hits as far as Van Halen goes, but I've never really sat and listened to an album. But I listened to this, and I was cool with it. I mean, like it's on the cusp of being uncomfortably hair metal, but I mean, like, it's Van Halen, of course, it's hair metal. The guitar playing on the album is obviously incredible, but this song in particular, there's something about the synths at the start that, not gonna lie, made me think that's pretty cool. Might try something like that in Bronze Age. There's a certain vibe about those synths that I really, really engaged with. Have a listen. Let me know your thinking. Okay, next track, Heartbreaker, Led Zeppelin. So this is just riff-tastic. Led Zeppelin 2 is quite an important album to me. So like, my dad used to hold this album up in high regard. And it was one of the it's probably the only album / CD that I stole from my dad, you know, like, and then took it as my own. But I used to listen to this quite a lot. I can't remember why I checked it out, but I've been listening to it quite a bit. Led Zeppelin 2 and Heartbreaker in particular. Great riffs, great songwriting. It was either going to be this or Ramble On, and I didn't put Ramble On because I don't think it's as strong as Heartbreaker, but there's something about Ramble On that, I tell you what I do like about Ramble On, it's references to Lord of the Rings. Like, it was one of those things that I went back and realised that he was talking about Gollum and Mordor. He says Mordor, he meant Mordor. But yeah, just really great stuff. enjoy. So on the Led Zeppelin vibe, listen to them Crooked Vultures. So when this album came out, I was really, really into it, and I've kind of dipped in and out of it since. I went on a pretty long bike ride last week and wanted something with depth, big riffs that just kind of take my mind off what I was doing and kind of escape a little bit. And I put this album on and I didn't regret it. This track in particular is just it's got such a great riff. It's got lots of great riffs, and it's got lots of great segments that kind of, literally take you on a journey. So Elephants, Crooked Vultures. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this album. Like, this is a super group, This is like Josh Homme, John Paul Jones, Dave Grohl, a one and done band, but it's a cracking album. And this song in particular gets me going, yo. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that. So next, Boilermaker, Royal Blood. So Royal Blood have a new album out called Typhoons. I've listened to it about 3 or 4 times now. I didn't know what to make of it to start off with because it sounded a bit poppy for my liking. I felt that I just needed to get past that, and I'm not completely past it yet. But Boilermaker is a great track. I don't know. I listen to it and I think, typically, I think in order for a band like Royal Blood to reach a wider audience, they're going to have to become more palatable to more people. That said, they have heavy riffs, right? We're talking drop C, big bassy riffs, catchy tunes. I mean, and I remember thinking, Queens of the Stone Age have probably tried to get as commercially viable as these guys. I don't know, perhaps, I'm not saying who's better or anything like that. Surely not saying who's better. But they've got 3 number 1 albums. Their first 3 albums have all been number 1 albums. They're doing something right by lots of people. And then it turns out that Josh Homme had produced some of this. I thought Calvin Harris may have produced some of it because Calvin Harris has done some work on recent Queens of the Stone Age albums, and it's got that kind of poppy vibe to it. But I don't know, perhaps some of that production that Calvin Harris did for Queens of the Stone Age has rubbed off on Josh Homme's, and he's applied that here. I like this album. I think it's a grower. It is poppy, and that is going to fall either side of the line for a lot of people. But Boilermaker is a tune, and if you want to find the live version, even more so of a tune. Okay, so next on my list is Money by Rich List. So these guys have made it on the list because Rich List consists of a couple of guys that used to play in Minnaars, so Adam and Gav. So it's kind of in keeping with the whole Neil conversation. They played a show, so anybody from around Leicester may already be aware of the Robot Needs Home series, where a bunch of Leicester artists have been recording shows in famous Leicester touristy spots or locations or whatever. And Rich List played a show at the National Space Centre, which is just like an interesting concept in itself. So like they had their drummer. I'm not sure if he's a full-time drummer or if he's just part of their live experience. They're the drummer in the middle. You had Adam on one side playing bass and synths, and then you had Gav on the other side, and just these huge fuck off rockets behind them. And I just thought that was just really, really cool. Gig was really kind of chilled, and it was good to see how they brought these tracks to life, because a lot of these tracks are very synthwave-esque. So I'm quite into it because of the synthwave vibe, and I didn't know how they were going to pull it off live. But yeah, they kind of had a guitar, bass, drum set up with the synthy stuff in the background. I'd highly recommend people go out and check that video out. It's on YouTube. If you search Robot Needs Home Rich List, you'll find it. Really, it was on a Friday night. I had a beer. It was almost like watching a live show. It was a really, really decent experience. So, Money by Rich List. Check it. And then the last track on the playlist, Head Over Heels, Tears for Fears. So I was listening to a few kind of synthwavy tracks, and I just wanted to get to the source. And I'm not saying that Tears for Fears are synthwave, but they are one of those 80s synth bands. And this track in particular gets me. I haven't figured out the right way to describe how it makes me feel. The lyrics are... I can't... When I figure out how to describe how Tears for Fears make me feel, I'll describe them. I'm not there yet. But in terms of just glorious pop songs with a dark edge that I can't think of... The lyrics, the vocals, the performance emote something in me that nothing else does in quite the same way. And I think if you're into Tears for Fears, or even if you know like songs from The Big Chair, and songs like Mad World and Shout, I hope you know what I'm on about. And perhaps there's somebody out there better than me that can describe what it is they're about, that strikes a very deep-seated chord with me. I've had a few rums, apologies. Head Over Heels, Tears for Fears. Alright, so again, like it is a bit weird. Like that format may work with or without the playlist, without the Spotify radio tracks. I don't know, but if it doesn't work, have a search on Spotify for the Wednesday Wang playlist. Subscribe, like it, and you can hear all of those tracks. Really, like I've really quite enjoyed this playlist as a standalone thing. I've listened to it a couple of times as I was putting it together and mixing the tracks in the right place and stuff. Hopefully the radio show side of things works out well, and I can get that going, because I think that format would really, really work, especially when Neil and I get to start talking. So yeah, good to be back. I hope you enjoyed that show. I'm going to be editing part 2 of the Neil conversation for next week, and then I need to organise another chat with him where we go through his playlist. I've been getting messages from Bob this evening on Instagram, because I tried to let him know that things are going live with the conversation with Neil. I'd love to talk to Bob and Ian about their take on Tied Irie and stuff like that. They're great guys. I haven't spoken to them in a long while, so who knows, they may be up for it, they may not. But yeah, so I guess all that's left to do is talk about my socials. So if you guys are a fan of this type of thing, come and find the Wednesday Wang on Spotify. Follow me at Wing Magma on Instagram, on Spotify, on YouTube. You can find the Wing Magma podcast on Buzzsprout. You can find it on Apple Music or iTunes. I'm still not sure what that is because I'm not an Apple user, but hopefully there are a few people that do know what that is, and they can tell me what that is so I can stop making an ass out of myself. Guys, so chuffed to be back. You've been amazing, and I shall see you next week. Take care of yourselves.